Hi everybody and welcome back to the latest episode of GTA Fancast on the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel with me, Gully. I'm going to be looking at the 3-2 defeat to West Ham at home. Some really interesting points to come out of this game. I'm going to be going into a little bit of forensic detail on a couple of the goals that we conceded in particular because frankly they were absolutely shocking. One of the strangest first halves in particular that I've seen in a long time. But you know, lots to talk about, so let's get into it. So quite an obvious place to start from a tactical perspective, and that being the return of the back four. I think I've spoken previously about Daniel Pedence kind of being the key to us operating in that way. When he's not around, it seems that Nuno isn't comfortable with us not having that kind of number 10 type player elsewhere in the squad to operate from that shape. But also I can imagine that not having the likes of Willy Bolly, João Moutinho, and of course unfortunately Johnny as well, maybe forced Nuno's hand a little bit, specifically in that central midfield area. You know, we have obviously played with Dendoncker in the back three recently, but without Moutinho to partner Neves, I don't think he was necessarily comfortable to go with a Neves plus Vitinha central midfield partnership, for example. So he's taken that extra player out of the back three into the midfield. And to be honest, it's something that I've been vouching for a while. So I was quite pleased to see it. Now, in practicality, a hell of a lot seemed to go wrong very early on. Now, in possession of the ball, I have to say, I think we played really, really well for the first 10 minutes or so. It's just that every time we lost the ball, we looked vulnerable to the counter-attack. And if we go into the detail of the first goal in particular, it's come from a situation that we've lost the ball on the edge of West Ham's box. Not necessarily, you know, anything to be too concerned about at that point. But I think what you don't really expect from West Ham, you know, despite the fact that they've had a good season, is the kind of incision with which they actually depart their half. And the build-up play to get the ball into Jesse Lingard is actually really good from Kufal. And I think it might be Fornals who plays a nice flick into him. But once that ball gets into Lingard, he's still pretty distant from goal, obviously. Now, there isn't so much cover on because we were pressing higher up the pitch. And I think the situation we find ourselves in is Lingard running at Sace and Cody, Dendoncker tracking back, and Antonio making a forward run as well. Now, for a start, you know, there were plenty of opportunities to have brought Lingard down at that point. Maybe they didn't feel the need to do so because there was still quite a bit of work to do. But once you get that intersection between Antonio and Lingard, where Antonio's run across Cody and taken him away and allowed Lingard that space to attack on the left side of Sace, then you're in trouble. You know, you see there straight away that Cody's been far too distracted by Antonio's run, which, to be honest, when you look at it from that situation, I don't think there's a real likelihood of Antonio being slipped in there. And sometimes in football, you do just have to play the percentages a little bit. Is, you know, the man with the ball the threat, or is the man without the ball a threat? And I think in this situation in particular, with Lingard running towards goal and Antonio kind of making a run away from it, really, you've got to stop the ball at source, really. And you know, Cody getting distracted by that run is a really bad decision, which has totally killed us. Sace doesn't do himself any favours whatsoever with his body shape and not reacting to that little drop of the shoulder that Lingard gives him. And, you know, he's just a parting of the Red Sea in many ways. And he's got a pretty simple finish. I think Ruby does go down a little bit early, which helps him out. But, you know, can't really blame him too much on that occasion because, you know, there were so many occasions up until that point that the goal just could have been stopped, you know, whether it be a tactical foul, whether it be stopping Lingard in fair terms as well. I'm sure there was an opportunity to make a challenge on him from his run prior to the halfway line. And, you know, that final little decision that Cody makes to go with Antonio, who frankly seems to be, you know, living in his head rent-free these days, because he spooked him for sure at the London Stadium, and on this occasion we made Antonio, up until the point where he had to go off, you know, look like one of the best strikers on the planet, frankly, which is quite concerning. But yeah, really disappointing goal to concede for sure. Now, of course, we didn't cover ourselves in any glory with the concession of the other 2 goals as well, but I just kind of want to juxtapose our own goal in that first half with the way that West Ham scored theirs. Now, despite the fact that, you know, Adama Traore picks up the ball in a deep position in the way that Lingard did on those 2 occasions for the first and the third West Ham goals, I think from the way that West Ham actually defended Traore in that situation, they managed those situations a little bit better. Now, the quality of what Traore produced, you know, is, you know, I don't need to tell you about how good that is. He done exceptionally well to get the ball onto Dendonker's head, having picked up the ball deep in his own half. But there are certain things that West Ham do, namely enforce him into a situation where he's running wide towards the byline on his weaker side and asking him to say, you know what, okay, there are certain things we can't do with Traore and we're not going to stop you running sometimes. But if we can guide you into a situation where the odds are against you actually creating something, then they've played the percentages in their favour. Now, Traore, you know, who hasn't been producing the goods, frankly, this season, whips an unbelievable crossing on his left foot. And to be honest, you kind of got to hold your hands up a little bit there, where he's running at 100 miles an hour at pace to the byline on his weaker side, whips it right onto Dendonker's head, and, you know, he's not exactly the most reliable finisher as well. So West Ham probably can sit there and just be like, you know what, we'll hold our hands up on that one, you've done a good job. Whereas, you know, if I show you this freeze frame from the third West Ham goal, you see a situation here where Lingard is surrounded by 4 or 5 Wolves players, and he still manages to squeeze the ball through towards Bowen, you know, in an almost kind of hopeful, kind of flick the ball forward kind of way. And you just think, why was it so easy? Why is it such a simple goal to concede? Because there's no way in hell, from the situation where I've frozen this picture, that West Ham should be scoring a goal. You know, and it's unacceptable defending at any level. You know, it's the kind of thing you'd expect to have seen, you know, now that the Sunday League is back from 4 months off. You know, a lot of overweight men, you know, running around a park pitch. You might see that kind of defending there, but to see it at a Premier League level with guys who've been out on international duty, you know, have been playing at really, really high level for the longest time, to see that kind of defending in that situation begs belief, to be honest. And I don't think that came down to a tactical thing. I don't think it was because we're in a back four. There's certain elements of it which I'll go into when I start to talk about the second half in a minute, but at the same time, just bad decision making and a lack of conviction and hesitancy within people's own heads just absolutely killed us. And going 3-0 down when you're a team that doesn't really pose that much of a threat going forward, despite the fact in this game we were decent, you know, we were on a hiding to nothing from there, really. Now, 3-1 down, going into the second half, Nuno makes that change at half-time with Potence coming off and Silva coming on. So, bit more of a direct approach came about as a result of that. But also, there was a bit of a preventative measure that Nuno took differently to the first half, which stopped West Ham playing a little bit, but also took a little bit of the fluidity away from us. I think with Potence in the side, naturally you get that little bit more movement out of him, you get a little bit more combination play and stuff, whereas the strikers are likely to stay a bit closer to the box. But at the same time, what happened was that basically, I mean, we all saw it, Lingard, Fornals, they were picking up the ball the wrong side of Neves and Dendonker on far too many occasions in that first half, which led to well, all 3 of the goals really. Now, what Nuno did to prevent that was try and keep Neves and Dendonker behind the ball. Now, if you look at our passing in the first half in particular, you can see in the final third of the pitch, much shorter passes, much more link-up play. But when I've spoken about this before, if I get this ball into my number 10 and he tries to find a nice little short pass into the striker here, and he gets cut out by this midfielder, this guy is very easy to bypass in terms of, you know, he's out of the game once this midfielder carries that ball forward. And then, you know, if never then Dendonker, like they were in the first half, were also caught ahead of the ball because they were up here, you're in trouble, really. Now, what Nuno decided to do though, especially with our passing and the shape of the team, the distances were bigger between everybody. So, if, as you're likely to see, Cody or Sace is trying to make a big pass at Neto, say, in this kind of area of the pitch, if he loses it here, there's so much defensive cover on that, it's not really a risky pass. Whereas if Sace is playing little balls into Dendoncker and Lingard nips in, then, they're vulnerable to being broken on, as we had them in the first half. So we had a little bit more security as a result, but we also lost that fluidity and that ability to pass the ball in neater areas of the pitch. And, what ended up happening was Neto would tuck inside. It was pretty much a 4-2-4 at this point. And we had a little bit of joy on that one occasion that Silva scored his goal, where Neto was able to turn and play that ball over the top when Silva made that nice run. But beyond that, we were struggling a little bit to create too much. I think there was another occasion where Dendoncker had a shot from the edge of the box, but then he's coming onto the play from a deeper position, whereas in the first half he was coming onto the ball in the box, able to make that late run, and Nuno was happy and insistent on him doing that. Whereas in the second half he'd kind of been put on the reins a little bit, clearly. So something that I think stifled us a little bit in terms of trying to get back into the game. It was more about putting crosses in and just trying to get balls into the box to two strikers. Then he tried to go back to it a little bit with Vitinha coming on, but I don't think he's got the right characteristics to play that role. He's much better as a deeper line midfielder, able to dictate play, and would probably need to play over a longer period in a game to really have an impact. But kind of stifled us a little bit. I think really stopped us getting back into the game. I think if you can safely assume that West Ham, having recently relinquished a 3-0 lead to Arsenal, were going to shut up shop at that point and weren't going to really commit too many men forward. So, we might have been better off playing with that higher risk style from the first half in the second half and having that high reward. We're always in that game at 3-1. I thought we were creating enough chances in the first half anyway. But, just a little thing that I think, again, just speaks to Nuno's natural tendency to look safety first, as he always wants to do. So not exactly the result we were looking forward to, but I still think that, given the way the season has gone, and there is, as much as people might want to create an atmosphere where we are still very vulnerable to relegation, a very slim chance of us going down. So I think if we are looking to play that way going forward, you're going to get a little bit more from the fan base. I think we enjoy seeing the team getting the most out of our forward options. Neto and Traore both bagging an assist. Fabio Silva getting a goal. Getting more out of those forwards is where we are going to really reap the rewards of what we have available to us at the moment. Bad decision making in defence is quite clear to see that without Gully and without another top class centre half, we are vulnerable when we play a back four. But that's not to say that it's not the right approach. We clearly need better options in those positions, but I don't think you can excuse any of those defensive mistakes by saying that the defenders aren't good enough. Those were simple mistakes against West Ham, which should never have happened, and we should never have been 3-0 down at any point in that game, frankly. So, it's a bit of a get out of jail free card for the players by just saying to them, Nuno has every right to just turn to them and say, you should just be better. We don't want to, let them off scot-free by saying, it's okay, we'll excuse you because maybe you're not, natural centre halves or etc. It's just too easy to say that when they're professional footballers, they're able to build up to these games every single week, and they understand what kind of threat they're facing. They've played against these players enough times now. So, disappointing game. Fulham, I have liked what I've seen from them, but to be brutally honest, so I'm expecting another threat going forward, but we should also be playing on the front foot in that game as well. So I'm hoping to see us stick to the back four system. Willy Bolly's not going to be available again, but I don't think that necessarily means that we should just bin it off straight after one game. Let the guys get used to it. If this is how Nuno wants to play next season, we need more minutes in this shape, and also let's get a bit more out of Fabio Silva. He's the one we've invested in. He's the one who should be getting the minutes, and he's the one who looks likely to score a goal every game as opposed to Willian Jose at the moment. So look forward to the game on Friday. I might not be doing a video for that one, unfortunately, just due to some of the commitments and stuff, but hopefully we see a better performance and a better result.